It was described as the storm of the century. Hundreds of thousands evacuated the East Coast ahead of Hurricane Gloria 40 years ago. This devastating system left its mark on Hampton roads, along with a WAVY meteorologist who brought you some groundbreaking television coverage in this edition of History Through the Lens. And we're going back 40 years in this edition of History Through the Lens. We're right at the height of our hurricane season, so we're going to turn the clock back a little bit and revisit a time, 1985. Hurricane Gloria, its impact on Hampton roads, and more importantly, we'll do something a little bit different this time. We're going to talk about how forecasting has evolved and how we warn the public, how that all changed in the last 40 years, a quite different world from 1985 to 2025. So I'm joined by my special guest. Everyone here watching this knows this man, meteorologist Don Slater, at that time our chief meteorologist, and for many years afterwards, more than 40 years as a television meteorologist.
More than that. I remember I
said more than.
Yeah.
It's like 44, I think?
50.
50.
If you add up the years before I got to this area.
Here in Hampton Roads, you've been here more than 40 years. So you have a great knowledge of this area and what WAVY was like in 1985. Yeah. And what you had to work with at that point.
WAVY was in downtown Portsmouth, and we were at it was the old Farmers Market building.
It's gone now.
It's thankfully. The first floor of the building contained a reception area. It was an old building, and it was really kind of decrepit. The first floor of the building contained the reception area, and then you'd kind of walk around the corner, and there was a staircase going up to the other two floors. It was a 3-floor building, and then you'd walk past Bruce Rader's desk. And Bruce Rader's desk was kind of up on a platform for whatever reason.
He exalted himself, didn't he?
Well, no, it used to be a farmer's market, remember? So who knows what it was for. Plus, there's a film developing area very near where Bruce was.
Pre-video.
The sports department. So there was that. And then you'd walk a little bit farther up the hallway, and on your left, there would be these big wooden doors. And these doors were refrigerator doors. They were refrigerated areas that used to work at the farmers market. Yeah. And they'd store old scripts and stuff in these things. There were chicken feathers and everything else back then. It was crazy. Then you'd walk into the newsroom, and it was a very low ceiling first floor place that would flood quite often. So we'd have to, it would flood just enough so the carpet would be wet. And that was usually from storms that would be coming up through the storm sewers and into the
tidal
building.
Flooding.
Yeah,
right?
Tidal flooding. But also from the plumbing. They would flood from the plumbing. Toilets would back up and come into the newsroom. So there people were.
There was always a system going within WAVY, it seemed, at that point. Why we were called WAVY, possibly? I don't know.
And on the second floor was all business offices and stuff. And then on the third floor, there was a gigantic prop room, but there was also the studio, a big studio, and what else was there? Oh, the control room,
right,
and the engineering department, all up there. So it was like the guts of the place, where the broadcasting part of the place was on the third floor, which was interesting because the studio, on being on the third floor of this old building, every time a bus would go by, the building would sway slightly, and so would the lights in the studio. And they had these great big, they were kind of cone-shaped things, lights, and these lights would just sway. So you'd be on the air, and you could feel the sway a little bit. It didn't bother you, but you could see the shadows with you would change.
So such a different world at WAVY at that time,
Yeah, it was.
and what you had available for technology.
Yeah, it was. About the time I got here in 1981, it was Bob Grip anchoring, Diana Morgan anchoring, and Bruce Rader on sports, and then myself. And eventually, and it was Terry Zahn who had gotten a guy named Terry Zahn who was anchoring on the weekends. He eventually ended up being the weekday anchor.
Yes.
So he was
Well known and well loved here for many, many years.
Yeah. So that was the crew at that time. And a really, 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 it was kind of a sleeper television market. Everything was, just, we're just kind of going along to get along. And WAVY was number 4 in the ratings.
Number 4
or 5. Yeah. Because there were reruns of different things that were beating WAVY. It was that
in 1985,
much,
like around that, or early 80s,
81.
81.
And at that point, the management was making a big push to do news and do a good job with it.
Long before our parent company took over, of course.
Yes, well, there have been several
parent companies, yeah.
Since then, there was a guy by the name of Don Pell, who owned it at the time out of Providence, Rhode Island. He owned like 4 television stations, I think, and maybe some radio stations. And it was called Lynn Television because the way he had started was he made these little travel booklets for hotels and branched from that into broadcasting. And that's
the company that hired me 18 years ago.
Yeah, but it wasn't the original Lynn.
No, it wasn't.
Because Don Pels was gone by then. He had sold the company, but he also had he somehow had the smarts to know that this thing called cell phones.
What's that?
Might be a big deal eventually. And before he sold the company initially, he bought into cell phone rights for different cities, New York, everywhere.
Not a very dumb man.
No, not a real dumb man. And so that's where we were with this TV station and the ownership at that point. I'm not giving you anything about Gloria.
Well,
the history of WAVY and leading into Gloria.
Well, I think you're building up to it because you know what we're going to do? We're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we'll go back to September of 1985. And I believe it was September 27th when it made landfall in the Outer Banks. I'm getting my dates right. Don will correct me if I'm not. So we'll be back with more of History Through the Lens after this. Welcome back to this edition of History Through the Lens and my conversation with meteorologist Don Slater. We're talking about Hurricane Gloria hitting 40 years ago. And by the way, I want to get a plug in here because we have an excellent hurricane special that you can see on Beyond the Forecast looking at Hurricane Gloria. You'll see a lot more video, a lot more in-depth coverage of that and how we did the coverage of that storm and the legacy it left here in Hampton Roads. It's an incredible piece. I recommend you watch it right here on WAVY Plus, and it'll be out when this drops as well. So you'll be able to see both.
Bob Bennett, behind the scenes, he put it together.
Yes, our producer. He loves producing weather segments. He does a wonderful job. So take me back to September 27th of 1985.
Yeah.
I think that was the day, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah. I'd have to look it up.
The Outer Banks that made landfall.
Yeah, it made landfall near the Outer Banks, or just kind of skirted the Outer Banks, and was moving due northward. And I can remember coming into work, and I'd seen some tropical storms. I remember I moved here from the Midwest.
Not hurricane country.
Not hurricane country. Huge tornado country. I'd weathered big tornadoes out there, EF5 tornadoes out there. I'd cut my teeth on that, but not really on tropical weather, other than the few things that we'd had. We'd had some brushes with tropical storms, And, exciting, but, not that much. But Gloria was moving on in, and in the days prior to it moving toward the Outer Banks, it had 145-mile-an-hour winds. And when it made landfall or near landfall at Hatteras, it was between 105 and 115 miles an hour and moving almost due north or north-northwest at the time. So there was thought. Remember, again, this is the Hurricane Center is a lot more primitive in its forecasting, but at that point,
How is it different than today, would you say?
oh my goodness, it's night and day in terms of they were doing flights over and through the hurricane just to see what the upper winds are doing. And so that part is the same, other than the technology. Remember, the computers were barely capable at that point.
Yeah.
They were just basic DOS things. Windows wasn't really even around. It's just basically DOS things.
So you really depended upon these flights a lot more than you do today.
Yes, and also the local National Weather Service offices for bringing their expertise, and also the data from what we got there. Remember that we didn't have computers loading in all kinds of data. We didn't have great access to what forecast models there were for this thing. So we knew it was going to be moving somewhat northward, but all we could do really at that point was follow it. And if it moved a little bit northwest, that's the way it's going. Well, it got up to the Outer Banks, and let's lead into the coverage of it. I told you all about the building. We decided at that point that it's a monster hurricane.
Yes.
And it had 105 or 115 mile an hour winds.
A lot for this area.
A lot, for any area. So it was moving northward. But the thing about it is we decided early in the day or the day before, or probably of the day, that we decided to go wall to wall with it during the overnight hours.
That means go on the air continuously, preempting programming.
Or at least stay on the air, whereas most of the time, most nights, all nights really, you'd go off the air after midnight. They'd play the national anthem, and that would be it. You're done for the night. Well, we decided to pull old TV shows off of the racks and play those all night and interrupt those all night when we had updated information. So we stayed up all the way through through the night.
So let me just interrupt you for a second. So WAVY signed off usually.
Yep.
And then you said, hey, wait a minute, let's play some old movies so we can come in and do bulletins on the hurricane.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So the other two stations went off the air. They did their regular, said, good night, folks. Hurricane's going to hit overnight.
Wow.
Unheard
of today.
Yeah, unheard of today, because TV stations are on 24 hours anyway.
Right.
24 hours a day anyway now. But at that point, they signed off at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and that was that. So there was a news anchor with me, at least one news anchor. I think it was Carol. I'm sure it was a lady named Carol Hoffman. Mm-hmm. She used to do the noon newscast here at WAVY, and then she had kids and decided to get out of the business. Nice lady. I saw her last summer. Anyway, so Carol Hoffman was here. And so we'd go on the air, once every half an hour or whatever it would be, whenever they'd take a break from the Love Boat.
So we're running reruns of the Love Boat.
Exactly.
Just so we could do bulletins of the hurricane, because we're not going wall to wall because we didn't have the capability of doing that with everybody.
Yeah. And plus we didn't have live capabilities to go out to that many people,
right?
Especially during a storm. We had some microwave capabilities to where we would be able to go live to such and such place. And I think maybe we had coverage at a shelter somewhere.
That was relatively new technology then, the microwave truck to go live. It was relative, like early 80s, it started really becoming prominent.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that it was even a truck. I think it was probably a microwave set up on a tripod.
Oh, my.
A microwave a transmitter set on a tripod and beamed to a tower. I think usually the towers were in driver Suffolk, Virginia.
Right.
So they'd beam it to that, and then we'd get it somehow. So anyway, Carol Hoffman and I, and some other people too, but I remember her, for some reason, I remember her being the main anchor. We were at the studio all night long. And the storm looked like it was coming for us, and it was moving on up just right on the edge of Hatteras Island, moving to the northwest. And then it just kind of wobbled a little bit.
Oh, boy.
Remember, we only had access to one radar.
Right.
It was a National Weather Service radar that no longer exists. And it was at Cape Hatteras. Good place to put a radar, you know, if you're going to be watching out for hurricanes. And of course we were. Well, as that storm moved on northward or northwestward, it started to wobble just a bit. And that can mean a change in direction or a change in strength. Kind of thought it was a change in direction. It finally might be getting caught up and getting bumped to the east just slightly. And thankfully it was. So it ended up being something like 50, 60 miles off the Virginia Capes. So it moved.
And you had to
offshore.
read this. You had more of your judgment that you relied on at that time, right? Than you have now with all the different models and technology.
Because we only had statements from the National Hurricane Center once every 6 hours. So we would get one at 11 o'clock at night, and that would last us until 5 o'clock in the morning. And if something happened in between, if the storm changed direction, we didn't really, it wasn't official. But at around 2 o'clock in the morning, we did start to see that slight turn. And so we started to broadcast out that a little bit of a sigh of relief. Because number one, we were on the west side of the storm anyway, which is good. The western side of the storm is weaker than the eastern side. You can still get some significant rain and wind, but it's more of a north to northwesterly wind. And you don't have the northeasterly wind piling water up and building the tides up. And then with a storm like that, we were, of course, more concerned about tides, given the strength of the storm.
We're going to take another quick break and come back for our final segment in just a moment. We're going to talk about how Hurricane Gloria affected how we forecast hurricanes and inform you, the public, today after this. Welcome back to History Through the Lens. I'm Tom Schaad. We're going back to 1985 and Hurricane Gloria. And I'm here with meteorologist Don Slater, who's been my colleague now for over 18 years here at WAVY TV. I just heard that little, like, oh no. I'm reminding you how long we've worked together, which is a little scary.
And obvious before then, quite a long time
yes,
too, before
yes,
you were here.
Yes, 44 years.
Yeah, totally, I guess.
You've been here at WAVY.
1981.
So you've seen a lot. So that night, you're talking about 2 o'clock in the morning, Gloria is taking a move, not going to be as severe as you had worried.
Yeah.
Is anybody watching at this point at 2 o'clock in the morning? Other stations aren't doing it.
Evidently, a lot of people were watching.
Okay, that's what I wanted to drive home. It was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a very, very big deal. And if you remember during the previous segment, one of the previous segments, I said WAVY was number 4 in the ratings.
Yes.
We immediately shot to number 1.
Aha.
So it was almost immediate.
My news director, if she's watching this, is going to say, see, we lead with weather for a reason.
Well, you lead with weather when it's big.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it affects everybody. Everybody wants to know. And you aren't going to be able to get I'm sorry. There's the camera. These apps that you get off your phone, yeah, they're nice, but
You
need
need
to watch local TV.
Amen.
And even the Weather Channel and places like that. You need to watch local TV when push comes to shove. When it's really, really time for a storm to move on in, whether it's a hurricane, a tropical storm, or severe thunderstorms. Because
Didn't want this to be a commercial for WAVY, but no, it's just a fact.
Yeah, but watch one of the other stations. The local weather is what I say.
I mean, we have the resources to really pinpoint this, and a lot of that time, a lot of those times it saves lives.
Yes.
Whenever you get that warning ahead of time, where to go, what to do, and our technology today is light years ahead of 1985.
Yeah, it really is. Pardon me. We did have radar then, but you couldn't analyze things. There was no Doppler radar then, which was able to see the movement of water droplets within a thunderstorm. So you could tell if something was circulating, and there was a tornado coming out of it. Hello.
It's working.
And yeah. So, but it's just the fact that it's live. It's not something that's been run through a computer and automatically put onto a phone
and distilled for the entire area. You can micro forecast.
Yes, it can show you what's going on right now. Also, places like the Weather Channel. Yeah, they show you a big picture. Yeah, the Mid-Atlantic is getting such and such. One of the first things I did when I moved here, I drove every weekend. I drove everywhere. So I knew the neighborhoods I was talking about, and I still do. I still know the
Jeff
neighborhoods.
Edmondson did that too.
Yeah,
actually.
I told him to. I said it was a good idea. I told him the same story.
He got it from you.
Because you got to know what the lay of the land is, what the people are doing.
Right.
And what kind of is it a residential area? Is there swampy area there? Is it a low-lying area? What's the topography? What are the economics? What's going on for the entire area? So when you say that we've got a severe thunderstorm warning for Poquoson. You know that it's going to be hitting this area, and you know what it looks like.
And the Weather Channel can't do that.
No. And they can't, they can't know that, Hampton Creek is there and, stuff like that.
So how did management at that time react after, we got ratings. I don't know if we had overnights in 1985. No, they probably came, they had.
There were no ratings, really.
Well, they had ratings, but
they had 4 times a year.
It was 4 times a year.
I think it was 4 times a year.
It wasn't overnight, but
no
you actually knew at one point, like, look at this.
Yeah, you would have they were called books. There was the February book. There was the May book.
Right.
There was the all-important November book.
Right.
There was a July book that didn't matter as much because people were vacationing, whatever, and not watching TV as much. But you would use these, especially the November book, because that's when people were home watching TV. And so, just 4 times a year, you got an idea of what people were thinking about.
So let's go back to late September. Everyone starts watching WAVY because of that incredible hurricane coverage at late September. What's that do for November ratings?
Yeah.
Right? You said we shot the number 1 from being a laggard.
And no longer were stations going off the air at 1 o'clock in the morning.
No, especially when you're under a hurricane warning.
When you're a hurricane warning. Hurricanes were going off the coast.
I still can't get over that.
Learned their lesson from that.
Because I'm not much younger than you. My first jobs in TV, our station signed off the air too.
Yeah.
And I didn't live in hurricane-prone areas or things that happened over. Usually we came back on the air at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
With a half-hour morning show, and then right before Today's Show. One station I worked at didn't have a morning show. We did cut-ins during the Today's Show as our first bit of local news.
Yeah, lots of stations did that.
Yeah.
But I can also remember the day and night of the storm. Here I am moved here from the Midwest.
What was that like for you?
Had experienced some tornadoes and big stuff like that, and a wide open horizon in the Midwest. See these thunderstorms that are 50, 60 miles away and go, whoa, there's probably a tornado out of that one. But you don't have that kind of view here, wide open horizon. But anyway, I can remember going into work in the afternoon and torrential downpour. we got 5-6 inches of rain in Norfolk, for example, but not all, but most of it came during the afternoon before the storm hit late at night. And driving on flooded streets, kind of going, oh, I hope I make it.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you've never experienced the rains from a hurricane, that's a unique experience.
Yes, it is. And I've experienced that too.
And then we're running short on time here. I don't know how much we got, but anyway, I can also remember, if I remember back to that newsroom that I told you about on the main floor, it didn't flood because we had a northwesterly wind. It was pushing water out of the harbor. However, I can remember I was just really, really curious because I knew that the winds were pretty close to hurricane force. I just wanted to open the door and see what winds were like that. And I opened the door and I went, whoa. It's one of those where you have a hard time close it and you go, oh, that's impressive. It really is. And you close the door as quickly as you can.
It really is. We could talk for hours about this. I know it's fascinating. We're going through different eras, different times, and that's what History Through the Lens is all about. Thank you.
It's time to bet your life.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tom can remember that.
I remember watching reruns of Groucho Marx doing You Bet Your Life. And the duck coming down. That's right. Say the magic word, win $100, right? Yep. But I don't have any money for you. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Don, for appearing for free on WAVY TV. History Through the Lens. Remember, everybody, we make history every day.